baby, do you know what that's worth? Jon Jones is the best on earth. Or is he? We're going to find out in this video. I'm going to present you a bunch of different information about Jon Jones. The good, the bad, and the ugly. In his UFC career, obviously, I'm not taking the outside stuff of the cocaine and the multiple arrests that he did outside the cage. I'm trying to leave that outside the cage and talk about his in-cage performances and determine, is he actually the GOAT? Now, we'll start off with the possible disqualifications, and Jon Jones does love himself a disqualification. So, the only thing I can see as a possible disqualification from the GOAT debate is PEDs, which makes sense when you consider the fact that in other sports and in our own sport, if it isn't Jon Jones, they pretty much do just disqualify you. If you bring up TJ Dillashaw's name in a bantamweight GOAT debate, you get thrown out the room because he took EPO. But when Jon Jones does it, he's the GOAT of all time. And also with Lance Armstrong, if you say that in a cyclist debate, which I've never done before, I didn't know they're cyclist fans really, but he gets, he took steroids, even though everyone in that thing's probably on steroids anyway, but it doesn't really matter. You throw up any of these two guys' names in a debate in their relative, respective areas, you're getting thrown out of the room, you're getting laughed out of the room. Jon Jones has got 4 failed drug tests. Now, one of them is for a cocaine metabolite, which is kind of it's not really a performance-enhancing drug. Maybe if, you were in the finance field, you ever seen The Wolf of Wall Street, $18 million in 3 fucking out, maybe it's a performance-enhancing drug in that area where, maybe you can train a little bit harder, but is not exactly a performance-enhancing drug. Now, his testosterone levels were very, very low, which means something could have been replacing his testosterone for that fight. He was chemically castrated for that fight, which is a bit weird to have as a professional fighter. And then UFC 200 tested positive for clomiphene and letrozole, which he then said it was a dick pill that he took, which could be plausible considering the fact that his testosterone levels were that of a castrated male. Maybe because he took performance-enhancing drugs. Maybe I'm just presenting the information. UFC 214 tested positive for turinabol and whatever the hell that word is. You can probably see it on the screen in the second line, at the end of the second line, in the top right-hand corner underneath UFC 214. If you can read that name, dihydrochloric methyl testosterone, which is basically just oral turinabol, which is an anabolic steroid that has no medical use at all. And then he tested positive for trace amounts of turinabol in his Gustafsson fight, so they had to get it moved to a different state because the athletic commission wouldn't commission the fight, whatever. There's his PED test to begin with. Most in the history of the UFC, by the way. Some would say that disqualifies him from the debate. Moving on, Jon Jones' record. Now, he's got one official loss on his record, which is a disqualification to Matt Hamill. As I said, he does love himself a disqualification. He was thrown illegal strikes. As much as he was beating the shit out of Matt Hamill and the referee was an idiot for basically asking a deaf guy if he can hear him or not, which is stupid, these were illegal strikes. And it was rightfully disqualified. Let's be real here. It was correctly disqualified. They were illegal strikes. Now, he also did arguably lose the Reyes fight, which is where people come along and say, well, Jon Jones, if we take away his disqualification because he actually won that fight, he's 29-0. Well, on paper, he's 28-1 because he lost to Matt Hamill. And in actuality, he's still 28-1 because he also lost to Reyes. He just robbed him. So, realistically, he's still 28-1 either way because we all know he lost to Reyes. It's either we all know he lost to Reyes and we say, okay, he lost to Reyes, or we just say, well, he lost to Matt Hamill, which he technically did on paper. So it's either you take the on paper result and the actuality result, he's still 28-1. In terms of his actual former champs, he's got a lot of former champs. He's got 8 of them on here. Few asterisks next to their name. He is younger than all of them. All of the people you see on this name, these are all former champions that he's beaten in the UFC. They're all older than him. He's also bigger than all of them except for Stipe Miocic. He probably weighed around 220 during his light heavyweight days. All the guys you see on the screen are either smaller than him in height or a lot smaller than him in weight. They probably weighed about 210 going into it. Not a lot of water weight cutting, unlike Jon Jones, who probably weighed about 220. He also, well, no, they all have 9 combined title defenses, which for 8 people on the screen who are all former champions, 9 title defenses is ridiculous. And it's even worse when you consider the fact that DC and Stipe, the 2 top ones on this list, consist of 7 of them. So the other 6 people on this list have a combined total of 2 title defenses, which kind of speaks to the quality of dominance of the guys he was beating. Now, some of them are very good names. Obviously, you see Glover Teixeira on there. He was a champ in a later version of the light heavyweight division, which was arguably better. DC's on the GOAT debate. And I think Stipe would probably be top 10 on that list as well, but he also beat a 42-year-old Stipe. Very different. But I mean, a lot of the guys on this list have. Why is Rashad Evans on there twice? Never mind. 7 former champions, because I've decided to be a moron and put Rashad Evans on there twice. Doesn't really matter. He was pretty dominant throughout his career, right? Let's just be real here. He was pretty dominant between a lot of these fights. He wasn't finishing a lot of these guys. He was kind of just. They were a lot of unanimous decisions in this. You can probably count up all the little finishes he's had, whatever. There were quite a few finishes, but there was a lot of unanimous decisions. And he has had quite a few close calls. There's about 5 in this list. Well, obviously, we include the loss to Matt Hamill because disqualification. First Gustafsson fight didn't really go very well for him. Almost lost. Anthony Smith almost lost via disqualification again with a legal knee. Thiago Santos, which I scored the fight for Santos. I rewatched the fight and I scored it for Santos. And then Reyes, which I also scored it for Reyes, and so did 80% of people. In terms of illegal strikes, he loves himself an eye poke, right? We look at the eye pokes. He does this every single fight. He extends his fingers into people's eyes, and that is illegal, by the way. You can't do that. You can't gouge people in the eyes. 12 to 6 elbows. He does that. I think he doesn't really do it like every single, like, it's legal now, but he hasn't like been doing it every single fight and just been getting away with it like the eye pokes. It's kind of just a thing he did one fight. We kind of just like take the mick out of him for it. Dirty strikes. Well, the oblique kick is a very dirty strike. Let's be real here. Look at it's hyperextending your knee, which I don't think it should be banned. Realistically, I'm just bringing it up. I'm just presenting the information in a way that, you can see where I'm going with this. It is a dirty strike, and a lot of people say, like Rampage Jackson, the guy in the left, on the left thing next to Jones on the left image, he hates this because it messed up his knee. It really isn't a very nice strike to hit, but it is legal, and we kind of have to go with it, But in terms of is he the GOAT or not, and where he would lie in the rankings, because of his dominance and how many title wins he has, even though it's over guys with, quite a few asterisks over them, and they maybe weren't the highest quality of opponents, especially in the early days, his performance-enhancing drugs, which, you can disqualify him from the conversation entirely, or you can just deduct a few points. I don't think he should be below Alexander Volkanovski, which is where this is what the Tapology have him as. So if you don't know what Tapology is, it's like the go-to for looking at UFC fighters' records and whatnot. So that's where I've got all this information of his former champions, whatever, from. I've all got it from a Tapology. They keep track of everything. They do their own rankings, and they've got Alexander Volkanovski ahead of him, which makes somewhat of sense. I do think Jon Jones is at least number 2 on that list behind GSP. I don't think that he is worse than Alexander Volkanovski to the point where he's 3rd. I think 2nd, maybe 1st. There's an argument for 1st because GSP did fight a bunch of part-time plumbers when he fought. But that's just my opinion on it. He still does need to fight Tom Aspinall. If he beats Tom Aspinall, I will admit he is the GOAT, whatever. But he's never really fought a guy who is young, up and coming, other than Reyes, who can do everything, right? He fought Reyes and he arguably lost to him. If he fights Tom and he beats him, I'll admit he's the GOAT. But until then, I don't think he is the GOAT. I think he's 2nd on the list behind GSP, who never got popped for performance drugs, never said that he never took anything. We can make a video about that, but it doesn't really matter. So there you go, Jon Jones. That's my opinion on it. But you make your own opinion. Let me know what you think. See you all in the next video. Goodbye.